Hello.
Hello, how are you this evening?
And you?
Hello, Val. Hello, Dawn.
Hello.
Hello, Charisse.
Hello, Dawn. Hello, Howie.
Hello, Howie.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Dawn.
It's a party. It's an absolute party.
Look at Charisse with all her blankets behind you. Are you expecting cold weather tonight?
Apparently, there's going to be a chill, so we're preparing for tomorrow to get all these blankets out.
I did actually hear that. Charisse, the question is how many of those did you knit?
Me. Anyone listening? I'm administrator here. I kind of just organize the whole thing. I'm not, and do a bit of sewing of them together, but I don't do that much knitting, I must admit.
And Dawn, where are you joining us from?
Cape Town, my hometown.
Your hometown. It's been your hometown for what, 2-3 years?
I have been here 3.5 years, but it feels like a lifetime.
Wow.
It feels like a lifetime, yeah.
Do you feel Cape Townian already?
I am so Cape Townian, it's frightening. So I also say to everybody, my famous is, I say to everybody, we must meet for coffee sometime. And it never happens. That's like so Cape Townian. Love it, love it, love it.
So you've become one of those.
Absolutely. You know, just chilling with your gin and tonic, watching the sun go down. Beautiful.
So I don't know, Dina, if you've noticed how many people on your panel are coming from the Western Cape. So we've got Jill Marcus, who I presume is on the beach. Hello, Jill.
How you doing?
Are you joining us from the beach somewhere?
Well, not quite, but at the coast, yes.
Fantastic. So we've got Jill in the Western Cape. We got Val Mizrahi in the Western Cape. We've got Dawn in the Western Cape. And of course, we've got Wendy Applebaum, who comes from the Western Cape as well. Isn't it amazing that the Western Cape seems to be the center of the most powerful woman in our community?
Oh, that's not good.
Howard, really?
You know, Dion, you're just here as the token Gautenger.
Oh, thanks, Howie.
But Dion does like the Western Cape. The true story. I've seen her there.
True story.
But Charisse,
Hey,
you can't.
can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
hello Sharon.
Oh
How are
gosh, I'm also from Gauteng. Help.
Oh.
Yes, exactly, Howie.
Thanks for got back up, Sharon. Thank you.
Yeah, gosh, we better look out for each other here.
But you do know, of course, that while Charisse pretends to be from Gauteng, Charisse, you're now an acting judge of the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein, are you not?
Yes, but I'm working from my home, my very sunny study at home.
No one
don't
knows
know.
that. For all intents and purposes, you're definitely joining us from Bloemfontein tonight.
Bloemfontein, okay.
So also, have you noticed how also the panelists, Dina, so many are connected to the Jewish Achiever Awards? So Dion Ellerin, you won the Business Award, what, about 4 years ago?
2016, Howie. Yeah.
2016.
Oh, 4 years ago.
Crazy.
Charisse Wiener, you won the Europe Car Woman in Leadership Award. When was that?
Also 2016.
And Dawn, together with you, we started the Europe Car Woman in Leadership Award.
We did indeed. Yeah, we did indeed.
And of course, Sharon Wapnick also is one of our judges in the business category for all the APSA awards. Sharon, so I hope you've got your judging hat on tonight. And
Yeah, I wish I was there. This is a bit intimidating.
Howie, I'm also a judge.
yeah, oh, sorry, yes, Dion, you are in fact a winner and a judge. Jill, you won the Jewish Achiever Awards. Can you believe it? I think it was in 2010, maybe?
Might have been earlier.
They have been earlier.
I think we
It shows you how you've neglected me over the past decades.
I keep on inviting you, but those dogs on the beach seem to keep you company.
They do indeed.
And of course, Val Mizrahi, you won the Jewish Achiever Award for on-site sports and culture. Also, must be about 6 years ago.
It was about 5 or 6 years. I thought it was also 2016, if I'm not mistaken, Howie.
It could very well be. Now, I don't know if you know that Jill and I actually go back to her first week back from exile in South Africa. Jill, I don't know if you remember it, but the week you returned from exile in South Africa, we hosted you and Ahmed Katrada on a panel for Jews for Social Justice. And we had a cocktail party in my parents' home in Melrose. To start off with, and then we went to, I don't know if you remember, Bonata Park School in Yeovil, and you
Berea.
and Kathy were in Berea, and you and Kathy addressed the audience, and that was, I think, your first week back in South Africa from
I
exile.
don't think it was the first week, but it was soon after I had returned. Yes, indeed. I do remember, Howard. And it was because it was my old school, although that wasn't the reason why we went to. I went to school at Bonata Park.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Wendy.
Hi,
How's London?
Ah, there's my favorite winemaker. Hello, Wendy.
how are you?
we were just before you joined us, we were just talking, and we're talking informally until 8 o'clock when when we'll go live. But we're talking about how everyone on the panel is either a judge or a recipient of one of the Jewish Achiever Awards. And Wendy, you and your family won an award a few years ago, our humanitarian award, for the remarkable work that you all have done in the field of philanthropy in South Africa. It is quite astounding.
Well, thank you.
So tell us what the wine crop is looking like this year. Are we in for a bumper season?
Well, it's not even a question of bumper season because the harvest is finished. The wines are magnificent. The only problem is no one
Can't sell them.
and no one's allowed to drink them. So what the hell? I mean, finally we're allowed.
Then some to Gauteng, Wendy.
Unbelievable. Honestly, it's mind-boggling. But anyway.
Are you allowed to export at the moment? Not a,
At
even.
the moment we're allowed to export. Nothing short of a bloody miracle. But
I think you should export to Gauteng.
no, honestly, it's so mad. I think that they've lost 80 billion rand in sin taxes.
No.
It's mind-boggling. They've lost more than they've actually borrowed.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But you say it's going to 2020 is going to be a good year for wine. What is your best wine that you'll produce this year?
So well, we are world famous for our wines. So always stick to the Chenin and the Chardonnay, and you can't possibly go wrong.
And do you do olive oil as well?
I do.
So tell us about your olive oils. What's in the crop?
Olives.
Olive oils are in fact, it's quite an interesting story why I do olives. But I use them as a sort of cordon sanitaire because we are basically organic. So we don't spray any cap or whatever. And I put them along the borders of the farm. Somebody dumped me on a order of vines, and instead, they said that they hadn't produced them, but they sold them to a friend of mine who said he's so lucky, he's just managed to land a parcel of things. And I phoned them and I said, that's utter bullshit. Now what are you going to do? And they said, well, we have no grapes left, but we do have a couple of thousand olive trees, and we'll trade you we'll give you the olive trees. I said, excellent, thank you very much. And so I planted them all the way around the borders of the farm, so that they are the first block of anything that flies from my neighboring farms. And now we get a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand liters a year. So it's fabulous. It's a sideline, but it's a good one.
That's fantastic. And Sharon, are you still able to work from home during this period?
Absolutely. I'm working very efficiently, surprisingly, because I don't consider myself to be a tech person at all. And it was a bit of a challenge to get equipped to work from home without assistance, because I'm very good with a lot of assistance. And here there hasn't been any really, other than my hubby and my son, which I'm very grateful for. But we've been able to work quite well. But we are missing seeing people face to face. That part is a bit tough and challenging, but you know, we've got no choice, so we carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. Dina, you also managing to work from home. You juggling children and day schooling and work and Jewish report stuff and Jewish achiever stuff. How are you doing it all?
She's a woman.
The show must go on. And I'm Leo. Like the other Leo, by the way, we have to wish Dawn happy birthday. It was her birthday 2 days ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Birthday.
Thank you. I had a
We're
beautiful
Jewish, we're not
birthday
Indian.
eating
Right.
takeaway pizza and eating ice cream on Clifton Beach, watching the sun go down. That's the life in Cape Town.
Oh, amazing.
Well, I also had a birthday in lockdown, and I have to too, it was one of my favorite birthdays.
Listen, I've got a really big birthday this year, I'm afraid. And I'm not having a small party. I'm cancelling it and I'm moving it just a year, 1 year ahead.
Okay, I think that's quite acceptable, because if you don't celebrate it, you don't age, so it's fine.
No, we were all giving up this year. No one ate.
Yeah, okay, that's acceptable.
And we were
You know
already all
what?
10 years younger anyway, so it's fine.
You know what I'm most excited about tonight, Dina? You doing all the work. This is our 42nd webinar during lockdown, and usually I'm on the screen for a good 90 minutes, 2 hours of it. And tonight, because it's Women's Week, I feel that I can take the night off. Women's Month, Women's Day. And so Dina told me she's prepared to do everything, and I've got my gin and tonic. and I'm going to, it would have been one of Wendy's wine bottles if only I could have gotten one. And I'm going to do the introduction, and then I'm going to sit back, turn my camera off, and drink some fantastic gin and tonic.
Jeez, it looks like we're missing out here.
Oh,
You
wait,
know,
Gin
if-
and tonics at dawn.
Had a delivery.
How are we?
I've got a glass of water if anyone's interested.
Dawn, that water looks remarkably like vodka to me.
I know, but I'm actually thinking, I'm looking at the clock and seeing how much time I have to make myself a gin and tonic to join you.
Yeah.
I've got 6 minutes.
You got exactly 6 minutes, and I can tell you that so far we've got about 800 people who have tuned in on Zoom already, and we're going to go live in about 6 minutes time, and we've got more people watching us on YouTube as well. So have you all been watching our webinars, or do we have to run you through some of the details?
I haven't watched it.
Oh, that's very embarrassing.
Sorry.
Tell us.
So I'm going to tell you that at the start of lockdown, we're at the Jewish Report, and Dina and I are both volunteers, non-executive directors of the Jewish Report newspaper. And we sat down and we said, how can we remain relevant during a period of lockdown? And because we're a community newspaper and we distribute about 11,500 hard copies every week, even in lockdown, we said, well, we're actually going to start delivering to people's homes. We're going to deliver to townhouse complex and blocks of flats, because people weren't going out to Pick and Pay and Spar and the place and Schulz where we'd normally distribute. So we said we'd actually deliver to people's homes. And even though it was not economically feasible at all to do, we said, well, this is part of building community. During lockdown, we're going to continue to publish. We're going to continue to distribute to people's homes. And we're going to look for something else that will really help our community. And so we decided to embark on one single webinar, and that webinar was going to be a medical webinar where we had doctors, and we didn't want them to talk about the virus generally. We wanted doctors and a psychologist to give people proper advice, like, if I go out, must I wash my clothes? When I bring my shopping in, must I wash down the shopping? What sort of mask should I have? And we're amazed that our first one, which we thought would attract a few hundred people, actually attracted thousands of people. And so we continued. Our second one was psychologists, and then we went into comedians and nutritionists and exercise people and yoga people. And then we started doing a bit of entertainment. And then we did, how do you educate your kids during lockdown when they're not at school? And is it safe to send your kids back to school? And we interviewed Simon Sinek with 34,500 people watching us live. And then,
oh my God, I'm feeling so people are not as interested in women. They're only 1,500 tonight.
so far, they're coming.
Can't compete
Bill,
with Simon Sinek, Wendy. Sorry.
Well, I can tell you that when we hosted the L'chaim, a toast to the people of South Africa, because Brian Joffe woke up one morning and said, people are depressed, let's do something to raise people's spirits. And we had Goldfish performing from Los Angeles, and we had Lyra coming in from Africa, and we had PJ Powers and Luisa Gola and people like that. We had 32,500 people watching us. And I'm going to tell you in a few minutes about what's coming up this Saturday, but we're going to tell a story, the most unusual, remarkable story you've never, ever heard, of an amazing woman and what she did. And you're going to hear about that in about 5 minutes' time, but you are going to be blown away and absolutely riveted, because Saturday night is an evening of storytelling like you've never actually heard before. So 2 Saturdays ago, for those of you who are watching, we actually teamed up survivors and the people who saved them. We brought in, I don't know if any of you watched, but we brought in a guy, an American who was in Rwanda during the genocide, who saved an orphanage of 400 people. And he came to tell the story of how at that very crucial moment, he made a decision. He was no great hero, but he made a decision that saved an entire orphanage. We tracked down the granddaughter of a Japanese diplomat called Sugihara, who during the Second World War issued visas against the instruction of his government in Lithuania and saved the lives of 6,000 Jews during the Holocaust. And we tracked down his granddaughter in Tokyo, and we teamed her up with survivors, the children and grandchildren of people who he saved. And they met on screen on a Saturday evening on our Zoom webinars. And that's the sort of amazing stuff we've been doing. And tonight really just continues what we've started, this process of storytelling, the amazing feats of people overcoming adversity, people of great success. And I mean, tonight we have a panel of some of the most enormously successful people in South Africa. The mere fact that you're a woman makes the story even more remarkable, but even if you weren't, your stories of success would be equally astounding and remarkable. And tonight is about storytelling, and it's about inspiring other people and making people make decisions, because in all of this, in all of our lives, we have decisions to be made. And each of your lives, I think there was probably a moment where there was a decision made that made you into the sort of person that you are today. And that's really why we're so excited to have you all on the panel tonight, and to talk about your stories and hear about your successes and learn from your failures as well. But tonight is a beautiful evening of storytelling, and that's why we're so excited to be able to host you all. So Dina, you've worked enormously hard. How on earth did you get a panel this illustrious together?
I have to tell you that this entire panel is so gracious and so wonderful that they were all so agreeable. I can't even complain. So I can't even say that I worked that hard, because they're all just such wonderful individuals that they were all willing to give up their time and contribute to inspire, knowing that it's Women's Month, knowing that they all do have those stories. I mean, there was a commonality that none of them think they've done anything so wonderful. I mean, they think they've just done what they've needed to do. But what is unbelievable is that they have all achieved, and they have all, both in business and philanthropy and in society, and just giving back. And you just have to all understand how unbelievable you all are, and how much you have achieved, and how inspiring your stories are, because none of you realize how inspiring you are, which is why you are here to share. So just a word from us that you absolutely are. And also, again, thank you for being so agreeable, and thank you for coming on, because I think we've got great stories and great content to inspire so many tonight.
So we would love to know, there are more than 1,000 people watching us on Zoom already. I don't know how many people on YouTube. I haven't checked yet, but we know that people join us from all over the world, and we'd love to know where in the world you're actually watching us from. We've got an unbelievable following in places that you wouldn't expect, like Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and Singapore and Brazil and Argentina and France and Costa Rica and Canada in the United States. And sometimes we count up and we have more people from more than 20 countries busy watching us. So hello from wherever you are in the world. Please let us know where you are, and a huge welcome. Lots of people in Cape Town, Johannesburg. I see we have people in Miami joining us. Hello to Robin in Cape Town, people in California, in Clanwilliam. I see we've got people in Josie, Muizenberg, Washington, D.C. Hello to Sampi in Washington, D.C. We've got people in Pretoria, Boca Raton, Florida, Ivers in Cape Town, more people in Pretoria. We got some people in Toronto, Canada. So hello to Ora Harris in Toronto. And we have people even in Cape Town. Hello, Veronica, and people at the waterfront. Please let us know where you are. We're really so happy that you've joined us for a remarkable evening of storytelling tonight. So as I said a little earlier, the time has just gone 8:02, and we're going to begin. I'm not going to be on screen at all because I don't think it's appropriate. I should be here. I want to sit back and listen to these remarkable, inspiring stories. But I do want to pay tribute to an amazing woman in all of our lives. And that is the editor of the South African Jewish Report, Peter Cross-Maunda, who we have no doubt is actually the best editor in South Africa of any publication. And you see behind me, I have in fact a screenshot of the latest edition of the Jewish Report. Please remember, we're still distributing through your supermarkets, through your spaza shops, through your garage shops, and to your home as well. And you can go onto www.sajr.co.za. And I'm just going to ask you all to mute because I see I'm getting some feedback. But go on to www.sajr.co.za and download the full edition if you don't have a hard copy. But a huge tribute this week during Women's Week, Women's Month, and Women's Day to Peter Cross-Maunda and her amazing team. They truly are astounding, unbelievable professionals. So thank you to all of them. I also want to tell you about the fact that we have open nominations for Jewish Achiever Awards this year. So if you look in your Jewish Report newspaper, you will in fact be seeing an advert for nominations. All nominations can be put in at www.JAA2020, which is for Jewish Achiever Awards 2020. So www.JAA2020. And please go and actually nominate people for this year's Jewish Achiever Awards. They will be different this year. We'll be doing a lot of stuff online, but you'll also be able to enjoy a gourmet meal in your home. We'll tell you more about it in the weeks that come, but please remember, we want to celebrate the heroes of our community, and this is in fact the right moment. The theme for this year is in fact heroes. So even though it says there, click here to nominate, what we really want you to do is to go to www.jaa2020.co.za and please nominate your heroes for this year's Jewish Achiever Awards. Especially, we're so delighted that tonight Dawn Nathan-Jones is one of our panelists, because together with Dawn, we created something called the Europcar Woman in Leadership Award. And Dawn, we've celebrated such remarkable people on those awards. Charisse Wiener, Judge Charisse Wiener is on tonight. She's one of the people that we've honored. We've had unbelievable. Our first person was in fact Paula Slier, the war correspondent and correspondent for Russian TV. She was the first winner. Last year we had Edna Frankel, who has taught literally hundreds of thousands of prisoners to read in jails around South Africa. So we've sought out and really met some of the most remarkable, inspiring women through the Europcar Woman in Leadership Award at the Jewish Achiever Awards. So please go in and nominate. I want to tell you as well about what's coming up on Saturday evening, because Saturday evening is, I think, going to be the best one we've had so far. You can register we're using a bit.ly link, so bit.ly/SAJR43. And on Saturday night, we are going to tell the remarkable story of a South African Mossad agent who came from Graaf-Reinet and is regarded as one of the greatest Mossad agents of all time. In fact, Pam May Roberts, who's been doing some amazing video editing for us, has put together a very short trailer for us that I'd love to show you.
She had to pull this off and not lose her life. She had to fool the best, and she did.
בשום סרט ריגול שראיתם לא מגיע לרמה הזאת של המבצעים שסילביה נטלה בהם חלק.
So Saturday evening, 8 o'clock, we're going to be telling you the story of Sylvia Raphael. She grew up with a Jewish father and a very Afrikaans mother who took her to the Dutch Reformed Church. She went to a Catholic school, landed up as many of the hippies did on kibbutz in Israel, where she was recruited by the Mossad, became a Mossad agent, an assassin, and one of the most celebrated intelligence officers ever in Israel's history. It's a remarkable story of South Africa's Mossad agent. So we'll see you 8 o'clock on Saturday evening to tell you the full story. We've got journalists, we've got movie makers, we've got, I can tell you, Sylvia Raphael's nephew who's going to come help us tell the story. Dina, any idea who Sylvia Raphael's nephew is?
I do. Could it be a certain very tall gentleman named Derek Watts?
Derek Watts from Carte Blanche is in fact Sylvia Raphael's nephew, and he'll be joining us on Saturday evening to help narrate the story of his aunt's escapades around the world. So we'll see you Saturday, 8 p.m. So finally, just before I go and I hand over to Dina, just a reminder that at the bottom of your screen, you have a number of buttons. Let's tell you about those buttons. You'll have a button called chat. If you want to chat to people, if you want to comment on what's happening, please click the chat button and everyone will be able to see what you're commenting. Please, we've created really a town square where thousands of people are gathering together and are talking to each other, mocking each other, laughing, sharing experiences. There are speakers, there are buskers, there's coffee, virtual coffee tables where people are discussing. Use the chat button and participate in our virtual community. If you have any of the questions or any questions for any of the panelists, there's a Q&A button. Dina will be very carefully monitoring the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So if you'd like to ask any of the panelists any stories about their lives, their success, their failures, their experiences, their challenges, use that Q&A button. And with that, I want to hand over to a woman who is far more capable than I am. Dina Diamond, tonight, as I sip my gin and tonic, the webinar is yours.
Thank you, Howie. I just think you need some fruit in there because that's why I have my G&T, for the fruit value and the nutrition. So again, I'd like to welcome you all to the panel. I think we've just got such an unbelievable lineup this evening. We will be having 10 minutes with each panelist and then we'll be coming back for a Q&A. So again, people, please feel free to put your questions in our Q&A section and we will monitor those. And without further ado, I'm going to ask all of our panelists to switch off their cameras and we are going to start with Dion Ellerin and we'll bring you up one by one. So thank you. All right, Dion, good evening. And how are you this evening? I know, thank you for joining us.
Dean, thanks to you and thanks to the South African Jewish Report. I think you've kept a lot of people from loneliness in this lockdown. So I think you've done a remarkable job. So even though I was perhaps tempted to say, don't want to do this, I couldn't say no to you guys. Well done.
Well, thank you for actually agreeing, and we are so excited that you are here. Again, you are one of those women who don't see yourself to have massive accomplishments, but you really do. You just constantly give. You're creating, you're building, you're raising a family. So the epitome of what Women's Month is really. And as I've said, I think this every month should be Women's Month because of what is achieved. So let's kick off. Let's talk about you growing up in a house one of 4 daughters, with a father who is essentially a workaholic, the strongest work ethic known to mankind, just celebrated 70 years in business, still gets up early in the morning, is in the office at like 7:30 in the morning, works a full day. I mean, growing up in that household, that must have had some sort of influence on you when you were growing up from a business point of view. What would you say that was?
So Dean, I was brought up actually in a very traditional household. Eric was actually quite a chauvinist, if I must tell you, and I love him dearly, but he went to work. Rona was a stay-at-home mom. And, you know, when he went into business, I think he thought that none of his children would ever want to carry on in the business. He was quite dismissive of us almost. And I think that's what drove me to complete my BCom and then my law degree, because there were just no expectations that any of us would go into the business. But I'm very grateful that I did go into the business. I think that being in a family business is a fantastic thing. It's been a lot of steep learning curves, and I think that children have to go out and do things on their own. I think I only earned Eric's respect when I went to London and I did my own stuff there, and I didn't want to come back, and he begged me to come back. And I think that when you show a bit of independence, you earn respect. But now we've got an exceptional working relationship, and I really enjoy working with him.
I know. Well, I've seen the full evolution, because he has said to me how much he relies on you, and that you are pretty much the one running things. So it just shows that you have literally gone from somewhere where you thought maybe you hadn't had respect. You decided to go out there yourself, and you proved everyone wrong. I don't know, in terms of I think in those days, women weren't so into business. Women weren't seen as having a proactive role in a business point of view. Now, you said you worked in London, you've worked in South Africa, you work with global teams around the world. Do you think, from a perspective of being a woman, do you think that different countries have different attitudes towards women?
So from a personal perspective, having worked in London for 11 years and now in South Africa for the equivalent amount of time, there's no obvious difference between the two. But what I do find quite fascinating in South Africa is that when Maria Ramos, your old boss, Dean, when she retired in February 2019, there were no other female CEOs in the top 40 listed companies in South Africa. Luckily, that has been rectified, and Naspers is just hopefully leading the trend, and they've recently appointed a female CEO. But I just do find it strange that in the top 40 here, only 4% of CEOs are female. In the UK, the 100 biggest companies have only 6 female CEOs. So I hope that, you know, things are going to change in that way. And I find it strange in South Africa that there's an underrepresentation of women, because firstly, we have easier access to help. And also, South Africa is a country where gender diversity is so prioritized. So you would think that there would be more women on boards and CEOs.
So how do you think we address that? How do you think we should actually fix that? Like, what do you think can be done within society to promote women into more senior roles?
So I think, look, it comes from education. And Dean, I think that COVID is going to do a lot of that for us. I think the days of, just one member of the family going out to work is over. I think that it's going to very much become a society where both people go out and work. And I think that it'll naturally happen. I do.
Yeah. And do you think that women have to come across as stronger or tougher to get the respect of men?
So Dean, I've always gone along that I don't want to be tough in business. I think that there are other ways. I think that women can be different. I don't think they have to go and do it in a male way. I'm often surrounded by all men in a boardroom, and often a lot cleverer than myself. But I think the one thing that differentiates me is a more tuned EQ. And I think in the world in which we live, the value of EQ is becoming increasingly important. And I also think when it comes to toughness, COVID's also shown interesting things. I mean, Angela Merkel has, she's become the tough female leader. Whereas if you look at some of the other female leaders who've done a great job, they haven't been tough. Someone that I really admire is the New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern.
Yeah, everyone loves her. She's the best.
I don't know if you saw that interview with her when she was actually announcing lockdown. There she was in her sweatshirt, and she made a point of saying, "Oh, I've just put my child to bed." And I think she really, has chosen to do it in her own way. I mean, I think as Prime Minister of New Zealand, everyone would have given her 5 minutes to go and change into a fancy, outfit. But she said, "I'm sitting here, I'm in my sweatshirt, I put my child to bed." She was decisive, but very empathetic, but not necessarily tougher. And I think she's applauded and respected for how she's managed COVID in New Zealand.
Yeah, I actually think you're right, because she, first of all, is one of the only sitting prime ministers that actually had a baby in office. She, as New Zealand was one of the first countries to actually say that they were COVID free. And she has managed, and she does manage, she rules like seemingly with like a feather, but manages to get it all done, and people respect her. She's got the respect of her entire government. She's got the respect of her people. She's got global admiration. I don't know if you saw, she did an interview recently with I think Ed Sheeran. He was going to play there, and so she even did a little spoof video to say, and he said, "Yeah, something like, I'm still going to become like a citizen." So she replied to him with a video saying that, "Hi Ed, this is Jacinda. I believe that you'd like to become a New Zealand citizen. We haven't actually received a formal request. If you'd like to, please put it in." But I think that she has managed that exact balance. Whereas you look at historically, maybe a Margaret Thatcher, she was seen as the lady with the iron fist. So I think there is definitely a balance and an equilibrium that we need to get to. But do you think that it's evolved over the years? Obviously, I think if you look in the beginning, also 80s, 90s, the role of women, how it compared to how it is today.
I think it has evolved, but I think it needs to evolve further. But I think as long as women find their own style and their own way of doing things, I've decided that in my office, much to my father's dismay, he thinks that deals can only be done around a boardroom table. I can tell you that to date, my best deal was done sitting at a shopping center, having coffee with someone, and we really got to know each other and understood each other, and definitely my best deal to date. So I think make it your own.
So women definitely probably have I would say probably a different management style potentially, and maybe a little bit of additional EQ that men are sort of one day hoping to get. So what would you say is, if you had to talk to young girls, young women who want to achieve, who really just want to make the best of themselves, what advice would you give them?
So firstly, I think you must go for it. It's extremely rewarding. I also think you have to be realistic. I think that unemployment rates are very high. So I don't think you can say, "Oh, I'm going to have children first and then go into the world." I think it's worth the sacrifice. And I think children get used to it. They understand. I do think that it's quite lonely. I think I've often felt ostracized at the school gates by non-working moms. I think sometimes extended family members don't understand when you don't have the capacity to be as supportive as you'd like to be. It's just, time management. I would surround myself by like-minded people. I know one of your panelists was Richard Sutton a way back, and in his book, The Stress Code, he said that having a community to form bonds is the most effective way of dealing with stress. So very much surround yourself by people who support you. And then, Dean, the most important thing I would say to a young girl is find a mentor. I'm sorry that I didn't have a female mentor when I first went into business. And I think that once my children are more independent, it's definitely an area where I think I could add to society and where I would focus on. But then, you know what? I think you just have to be passionate. You have to do whatever you do it well. And a slogan in our house is, we're allergic to mediocrity. So I think that is always a good thing. Strive to be better.
I love that. I think that is all unbelievable advice. And you're getting comments here that is great advice. Find your own style and make it your own. Amazing. Thank you so much. I think that was amazingly insightful. You're going to join us at the Q&A at the end as well. So thank you so much. And thank you for sharing. I know that a lot of those words really, really, some of them just hit home to people and they can make a difference for the rest of their life. So thank you.
Thanks, Dee.
All right. And so now moving on to a commercial break, we have a few sponsors that are with us this evening and that have contributed to our panel. So Mantis have continuously sponsored us and we thank them for that. So we'd now like to run their ad. Dan, please run that for us. Sorry, I think something happened to the sound on that one. All right, so moving on, we are going to go to our next panelist, and this is Sharon Watnick, who's an attorney. She's on 2 boards. She has literally also proven herself to be a formidable force. I'm going to try, sorry, and just get your video up. Here we go. How are you doing this evening? Working from home, surviving?
Good evening. Yeah, hi Dina. Good evening to this formidable panel. I feel quite daunted being amongst all of you. And good evening to all our viewers. And I see there are a lot of people from our hometown, Pretoria, who are sending messages, and indeed from all over the world. So a warm welcome to you all.
Absolutely. Listen, you've got to represent Pretoria. So you've already been past the Western Cape. So Sharon, we were talking a bit earlier, and it seems that in your family that you've always had strong women, you've had women like role models that you were able to look up to, particularly your grandmother who came here from Lithuania. We were talking about that a bit earlier. Tell us about your grandmother and her story.
Okay, so my gran and my grandfather came to South Africa in it must have been the early 1900s. They came from Lithuania as newlyweds, and they had 2 sons, my dad Alec and my uncle Simon. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away when the boys were very young. At that stage, he had a general store in Pretoria, and my gran was a housewife. As a result of his untimely passing, my gran had to go into the business and really run it on her own. She had never worked before, and you can imagine these were war years. Conditions were tough, and she had to source supplies. It was not easy. She went around, I think, even to Johannesburg, sourcing goods and stock. And she just took to this like a duck to water. I knew my granny very well. She had an uncanny knack for business. You would have thought that she would have been in business forever, that she'd had formal training, which of course she hadn't. And she was able to build the business up and support herself and the children, the boys, and educate them. You know, even today I hear stories that if you needed something, you went to her store, and if you couldn't get it there, the chances are you wouldn't be able to get it anywhere. Of course, there was no Amazon or Take-A-Lot in those days, but her store was the closest you'd get to it. And she had a very strong Lithuanian accent and loved business. We always used to discuss business, investments. She had a very inquiring mind. I used to listen to her discussing things with my father. And to her credit, my father was a chartered accountant and my uncle a surgeon. And, you know, I think we all relied a lot on her and her wisdom. And she really was a fantastic role model for us.
So yeah, so do you think that you took some of that, maybe not even cognitively, but you took some of that like strength of hers and that sort of determination of hers to succeed into your own life and into your own view on how you wanted to approach business?
As you say, probably not cognitively, but if I look back on this now and I see how determined she was and how she got on with things and her indomitable spirit, I think probably that was a big role model for me.
Right. And also we spoke about one day when you took your son to work. I think that was quite a telling story, because obviously he also grew up in this environment where he had strong, capable women surrounding him. And then he knew you were a lawyer, an attorney, and you took him to work one day. And I just want to tell that story because I think it's just so telling. It's fantastic.
So I took Craig to work, and at that stage he must have been about three or 4 years old. It's a long time ago. And I introduced him to one of my partners, Oshi, and I said to him, Craig, this is Oshi. This is one of the lawyers that Mommy works with. So he looked at Oshi in amazement and he said, "Ooh, can men also be lawyers?"
I absolutely love that. I think it's amazing. And I think it's actually a sort of kudos to you in terms of how you brought him up, and he thought how that woman was so capable. I mean, it is just a magnificent story. Magnificent. I love it. So obviously also you've got your own kids and you're also educating them and they're also succeeding in their own lives. Do you think that you have influenced them to get more into a business environment, or do you think that they just naturally have sort of taken that up to kind of achieve themselves?
Look, my boys are grown up. They're big boys. They're finished with their education and they're both pursuing careers. I think that they have seen me work very hard, and I think they do understand that good things are. I'm just looking at the messages coming up. They're fabulous, but they're catching my attention. I think that they've seen that to succeed, you do have to work hard. These things do not come without the hard work. So you do need to devote some time and effort and attention to all of this.
And how did you manage that, especially I think when your kids were younger? What was like the balancing act in terms of trying to have your career, trying to work, trying to rear your children, and you've got a wonderfully warm, loving family. How did you manage to get that right? Because so many women struggle with that.
Look, I think you have to have the desire to do all of that, because, you know, each role is in itself quite a demanding one. And I know my husband's going to kill me, but I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. He's a tremendously supportive man. He's wise and he's terrific. I mean, I couldn't do it without him. He's my rock.
Listen, that's so important. And I know that he really is. And now, and also like when you sit on the boards, I mean, obviously you are surrounded by men, and predominantly probably in a lot of the boards, I think they are predominantly still male dominated. But do you find that your legal training and the fact that you can actually like know exactly what's going on with legal contracts and all of that, do you find that to your advantage, and that people and men even sort of take you more seriously because of that?
Yeah, unquestionably. You can't walk into a boardroom unprepared, and you know, that coupled with some training, legal training in this instance, is unbelievable, because the one thing that they can't do is they can't pull the wool over your eyes, and they can't wing it. If you're properly prepared and you know what you're talking about, there's less chance that you're going to be bullied. So my advice to all ladies, all women in business or in whatever they do, well, I like to be prepared, and I like to know what I'm talking about. And so don't go into a boardroom not having studied your board pack.
I think that's great advice. And also, the more prepared you are, the better you are able to manage all of those situations. And in terms of the boards, and obviously being prepared and having to deal with the males, are you finding that there is an advantage to having women on the board, that maybe there's a view and an approach that women have that men don't have, which turns out creates a more balanced and holistic approach?
Yes, definitely. I think that women do bring a different dimension to the boardroom table. They do think differently to men. They perhaps have that EQ that Dion spoke about, and perhaps, and we look at things differently. I think that you know, men sometimes don't think about certain things that women do. I think that women are generally more considerate of impacts of their actions on others. And I think that it's very good to get different perspectives and different views on topics. And it changes the way things are done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have seen a shift in sort of the diversity of boards, because originally I think it was saying, okay, we have to get this amount of women on the board. But now I think that there is actually an approach and a focus on getting women on the board where you actually want input from them. You want them to be contributing members of that board. Are you finding that as well?
Absolutely. I mean, there are phenomenally successful, capable women out there who now are getting better positions. And but they do need to fight for them.
Absolutely. Now, so we are almost at our 10 minutes. So on that note, do you have any tips for working women in a male-dominated industry? What would you advise them?
Look, I would tell them, I would request them to go and read a book. I haven't read it for many years. It's about 7 years old, written by Sheryl Sandberg, who's the chief operating officer of Facebook. In her book, Lean In, she describes how women unintentionally hold themselves back in the boardroom. And, well, not in the boardroom, really hold themselves, not everybody's in the boardroom, so hold themselves back in their careers. And she encourages women to, as she describes it, to sit at the table. And she says, seek challenges, take risks, pursue your goals with gusto. And the one thing that's also you can take from that book that's fantastic is that her emphasis is on women, is on what women can do, not on what women can't do. And I think that's very important. And to round off this topic, I always like to quote Golda Meir, the 4th Prime Minister of Israel and the first female Prime Minister, and I hope there'll be many more, when she said that the best man for the job is a woman.
Listen, you get no arguments from me, and you clearly prove that. By the way, you are getting messages here from Pretoria, from Harties, from the Wapniks in Cape Town. You've had a comment about your gorgeous glasses.
Thank you.
So clearly you are definitely making an impact. Someone wanted to know who the book was by. It's Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In. So yeah, I would actually definitely recommend reading that book. It is absolutely phenomenal reading. So Sharon, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for giving your input, your advice, your insights. They are phenomenal as you may continue to grow onwards and upwards, and you'll also be joining us in the Q&A. So thank you so much, and we'll see you shortly.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now to move also to one of our next sponsors, Capability PBO. We will be going on to one of the ads that they're running. And thank you again for being one of our sponsors. So Dan, please run the ad for Capability PBO.
Capability BPO offers a diversity of BPO services to private and public sector clients, both to domestic and international markets. Debt-In is a private professional services business that specializes in debt recovery and credit control solutions to public and private institutions, operating its own specialist debt collection contact center and creating unique strategies for its clients in order to significantly improve their collection results. Contact Mark Essie, the CEO, who will assist with solutions tailor-made to your specific business requirements, bringing the expertise of his team to your back office.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'd like to bring on our next panelist, Wendy Applebaum. She is a philanthropist, an entrepreneur, a winemaker. So glad you could spend time with us out of the vineyards and join us this evening. And off the golf course. I believe you're an avid golfer.
Yeah, in fact, I played golf today. So I'm feeling satisfied. I don't play as I'd like to, but I do.
Was it a good game at least?
It was an excellent game, actually.
Fantastic. So Wendy, you've had a very colorful career, a colorful past. Growing up as Sir Donald Gordon's daughter must have had its own sort of challenges and advantages all at the same time. I think I've read some articles where you talk about growing up with your father, like growing up in a house like that was a business school, because you're always hearing about business, you're always learning, you're always growing. Do you think that had a huge impact on you today in terms of you becoming a successful businesswoman?
I think it probably did. I mean, I think he was, there's been spoken about sort of role models and things today. And I guess he was an incredible role model. The last thing in my life I wanted to be was a businesswoman, I can assure you. I really, really wanted to be a doctor. So this for me was probably a disappointment for myself. But, you know, I think I was extremely lucky that that I was in a position to soak up the lessons that he just, you know, my father never really spoke to anybody. He spoke at people. So that's why I always said it was like being at a university. He would simply lecture you, and he would go through the details of a deal to the extent that you would really understand how the inner workings of business were. But as Dion said, you know, her father was a bit of a misogynist, and mine was too. He didn't particularly, and there was very little expectation actually of me to go into business. Women really should have children and be good wives and do all that kind of really dull, boring stuff, which was never ever going to make me happy.
No, so, I mean, you are described by Forbes magazine as ferocious, feisty, and fun. So, I mean, that's quite
right. I mean, listen, I'm a bit like Marmite. Hey, love me or hate me, but you know, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Some people find me aggressive and unpleasant, and some of them have been on the wrong side of my wrath, which is quite well known. But I don't really care. This is not what I've been put on the planet. I've got enough friends. I don't look for friends. So I am who I am, and I'm listen, I am. I'm very feisty. And I do speak truth to power. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. And it's quite interesting. But maybe I'm a little bit of a rough diamond, but I like it.
Listen, clearly your feistiness and your rough diamondness has helped you achieve, it's helped you build businesses, it's helped you empower women, it's helped you become a philanthropist, it's helped you give so much to society, and again, to fight those who you feel have taken advantage of the less fortunate. You had a case against microlenders. I mean, who takes on microlenders because you felt your employees were being taken advantage of?
Listen, I love to fight. Honestly, it is one of my favorite things, but I prefer to fight. I don't like to fight with the people I love, so I prefer to fight with people who really deserve it. But I fight for what is right. And I fight against all the injustices of society. So I fight for people who don't have the voice, and for those who have no access to power, or, I mean, having just listened to a lawyer, access to justice. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Nothing gives me more pleasure in the whole world than a good fight. And it was interesting that Sharon was now speaking about Sheryl Sandberg, because I'm just having a fantastic fight with them. And it's very often about lack of duty of care. So that was the microlending case, where they just took gross advantage. I mean, to follow an advert straight after about debt collection, a little bit insensitive to your
chose a different one. Sorry.
Maybe these ones are good, but I don't hold them in the highest esteem, to be absolutely honest. However, I think it was a wonderful fight. That was a class action that really brought enormous success. The interesting part was that in the end we got costs, so I actually got quite a bit of my money back, which was very interesting and most satisfying. But besides that, the investment that I put into that case was absolutely extraordinary, because the return of what was put back into the pockets of the poor was probably one of the greatest sort of successes of my life. I loved it.
That's fantastic. And I mean, you're also getting comments here saying you're a rock star. Someone wants to know, were you feisty like
with a voice like this? How could you be a rock star? Don't be ridiculous. I can't sing.
You know, listen, I don't think rock stars need to sing. I think you just need a guitar and you're good to go. So someone's asking, were you feisty like this growing up? Or was it something you learned in business?
No. I was born feisty. I think I often felt sorry for my parents, particularly my mother. I mean, I was not easy to bring up, I can assure you. So I can imagine that. I don't know, maybe I was the middle of two brothers. And I think that also helps you learn to fight and be strong. You know, some people wake up in the morning and brush their teeth. I wake up in the morning and I sharpen mine.
Oh, I love it. I love it. But you've also always fought for women and women's rights. So you were instrumental in co-founding Wiphold, which was the first woman-owned listed company on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. What drove you to do that? And specifically women?
Well, I think women are victims. I really do think they're victims. I mean, here we sit tonight celebrating Women's Month. Do you know that the other 11 months all belong to men? We should not be proud of this.
That's what I think. Every month is Women's Month. Don't worry.
I really think that we shouldn't be proud of it. And it just shows you that we are still seen to be different to men. It depends which way you look at it. I think in the main, far superior, but you know, and I think that it has proved to be really important to have women on your boards. And I think that business and the face of business is changing enormously because of that different viewpoint that women bring in. But, you know, I think we're still a little bit behind the curve. Nelson Mandela tried really hard to have 50% of his cabinet as women. I think a lot of women in politics have let us as women down horribly. And, you know, without that help of, I suppose, in a way, it's a quota. But it's still to this day. I mean, I think it hasn't dropped further than about 45%. Some of them should be ashamed of themselves, because we are supposed to have better moral compasses and be able to see right from wrong with more ease than men do. And so, I think South Africa is quite ahead of the international curve if you look at the statistics. But I think there's also all sorts of issues around serial board sitters and taking up too many seats and sitting on boards that you shouldn't sit on or have no expertise in. And I think that women need to give a leg up and a hand up to others.
So do you think that's a solution? Do you think that women in business, women in leadership, is that part of a solution potentially? Is actually current women CEOs who maybe actually don't want to push other women because they might feel like it's tokenism or maybe just favoritism?
No, I think it is very much the case that women, don't really bring women along with them. And it's interesting that Dion said that she would really have liked a woman mentor, and there's so few. So we need to get a much broader selection of women across the board that can happily give back. And I really do believe that women should be giving back to other women.
No, absolutely. But why do you think it is? Especially we've got such few, again, also especially also in the Jewish community, there's such few business women who really like stand out and who really that you can sort of count on and you say those are the ones that we need to actually look up to, or they can be mentors. Why is there such a lack of these women? What do you think it's one of the structural, is it a structural change that needs to happen?
I think it's happening. I think it's happening more than you think it's happening. I really, really do. I do believe, I think the rest of the world is lagging. South Africa, not as bad, really not as bad.
Yeah. So also you're part of, again, in the Donald Gordon Foundation, the business school, the medical center, I know, which is obviously your need to become a doctor. So you got involved anyway. You've become a winemaker. You even won the first year, I think you produced some wine. So what is it that drives you? What like advice can you give to young girls? How can they make sure, like, even like no matter what it is that they want to achieve, because no matter what it is that you wanted to do, I mean, you were no winemaker and now you've got speakers in the vineyard singing to your grapes. So what is it that really do you think?
I do think it's passion. I really believe that there's passion. Don't do anything that you don't love. You have to love it. When you wake up in the morning and anything irritates you, get rid of it and start again. Do something else. But I'm a terrible perfectionist. I'm a shocking perfectionist. So for me, it's the best or it's nothing. And so I drive myself hard.
And what do you see as your legacy from everything that you've already built? I mean, you've done so much, you've contributed so much, you give so much to charity. What do you want your legacy to be?
I think that with great wealth, honestly, comes great responsibility. And I don't do this. I love everything I do. I really, really do. Nothing gives me more pleasure. I was brought up on a steady diet of giving back to society. And actually, I would say to young people, be a productive member of society. Whatever you've got to give. Not everybody's got money or whatever. And I actually do sit on all of those boards, and I do get myself really involved and make sure that they are successful. So, it's part of my, it's just part of my nature. It's what I do. Yeah.
No, and that's fantastic. And again, as you say, people can always give money, but to give their time and expertise takes a little bit more, and you give all of it. So thank you so much. I think your words of wisdom are well taken. I mean, the chat also has been going mad. You're getting bravos.
Thank God I can't see them, because I could see Sharon was reading them and was trying to respond.
No, they're fantastic. They're saying someone actually said that you should have your own show. So never mind Oprah, you could totally have your own. So thank you so much. You've been outstanding, and we will hope to hear from you more in the Q&A shortly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Great. Now, also moving to one of our next sponsors for this evening, North Face Capital. Dan, please will you run their ad?
Looking for office space, industrial space, showroom or restaurant space for your business? North Face Capital develops and builds the right property solution for your business. Top of the line, flexible, customized modern solutions that contribute to higher employee productivity and customer satisfaction. Go to northfacecapital.co.za or call 087 7500 to find flexible, productive, quality space for your business. North Face Capital, developing for today, growing together for tomorrow.
Fantastic. And we'd also like to thank North Face Capital. They have contributed with JP Media and you, their media partners, over 2 million rands worth of free media to SMEs in the time of COVID to try and assist with their businesses through their digital signboard on Grayston Drive. So well done and thank you. And thank you from the community and all the companies that you actually have helped. Now, before we go on to Sharice Wiener, who's going to come and talk to us about her project, we'd like to put up a poll. Dan, can you please bring up a poll that we would like to ask? Sexism in progress. If you are a woman, have you ever experienced sexism? If you are a man, have you ever been the culprit of sexism? So let's see those answers come rocking in. Okay, sure. So it looks like people are answering, and it's quite competitive in between never and sometimes. So I think this poll is going to be quite split at the moment. We'll just give it another minute, and we're going to go, and I'm just going to get Sharice and actually just get her to start her video and unmute. Looks like we're just going to give it a few more seconds just so that the numbers keep coming in. Okay, I think we are going to end the poll over there. Now, what are the answers? All right, so guys, the answers on this in terms of sexism, 49% of people say if they're a man or if a woman, they've either been the culprit or have experienced sexism. So 49%, 37% say never. So that's quite actually an impressive number. 12% a lot, that's not encouraging, and 2% what is sexism. All right, so thank you so much. We are going to share now. We're going to stop sharing those results and we are going to bring on Sharice. Let's just find her. Sharice, are you with us? There you are.
I am.
Good evening, and how are you?
Yeah, on day 11 to 77 of lockdown, we're doing well.
Thursday, Tuesday, Monday, Sunday.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Listen, Sharice, as long as you're warming the world, that's what's important. So
yeah.
you
I just want to, from that poll, I just need to remark, and perhaps Sharon will agree with me, that if you've ever been in the legal profession, you've been subject to sexism. I don't know a woman who hasn't.
Well, hopefully with people like you in the game, things will improve. I mean, they know that you're not one to be messed with, Sharice. But you also have the softest heart, and that's what you're here to tell us about. Your wonderful initiative called Warm World, and a function that you're running next week. So you can tell us quickly, briefly about what you actually do, and then obviously about your function.
Okay, well, Dan has a short video that he was going to play. I'm not sure if he wants to play it now or after I've said a little piece. Warm the World was started in 2012 by Dr. Shirley Lipschitz, myself, and Ruth Ginsburg. And it started off, we placed balls of wool in doctors' rooms. I'm sure all of you who've been to doctors have seen the balls of wool there. And then people knit squares, or they just knit a row or two, the next person comes in. We've also got about 50 knitting groups around, mainly in the Gauteng area, and the squares are then all collected, dropped off at my house. My house looks like a storeroom all of the time, much to my husband's disdain. And then we have about 20 women who are otherwise unemployed, who sew the squares into blankets, and we distribute to about 50 beneficiaries that we have. So over the last 6 years or so, we have probably distributed about between 6 and 10,000 blankets, and 200,000 squares have been made. So what we like about the organization is that people contribute in a way which is not just money. And it's therapeutic for the people who are knitting. I mean, especially during COVID, we've had so many elderly people all alone, and it's been their therapy during this time. The same time, there is a skills transfer to the women some who are knitting, some who we've taught to knit, and who have been taught to sew. And then obviously the beneficiaries who get the blankets in the end. And they're really beautiful, colorful blankets. So it also helps to show a little bit of love and joy for these people. Yeah, so we are completely self-funded, obviously, through personal donations. We don't have any corporate funding or anything. So I have become like I think most of my friends and colleagues, I sent them a message saying, I'm not sure who's going to be happier when this fundraising is over for this event, me or you, because I've driven them mad sending out. You must have got already about 6 or 7 times request to book tickets for our event that we've got next Wednesday night, which is Nick Rabinowitz, live in your lounge. The dress code is pajama and slippers. And we're hoping that we'll get enough tickets sold and donations made for us to continue doing what we do. So yeah, perhaps
getting requests for your details and all of that. So we'll post that in the chat. So people who want to contact you and want to drop off squares and who have been knitting at home, Hadassah says she's knitting right now. So we'll get those details on the chat so that people can contact you if they want to knit. But I think let's roll your video and let's see how we go.
Okay.
Fantastic video, and you can see how beautiful those blankets are. They're honestly magnificent. And here is Nick Rabinowitz. Who doesn't love Nick Rabinowitz? So people are asking if there's a Facebook page to go and book it. There is a Facebook page?
Yeah, well, it's Warm the World on Facebook. The booking is done through Quicket. You can do it through SnapScan, Zapper, wherever on the Quicket website, and you just look for quicket.co.za and then just go to Nick Rabinowitz or Warm the World presents Nick Rabinowitz. Tickets are available there as well as raffle tickets. We've got 3 wonderful prizes, 10,000 Rand unit trust from 361 asset managers, jewelry from Elegance Jewelers and Aresti, who everybody knows, and a Kindle from Circuit Electronics. So those are the 3 prizes, and the raffle tickets are either available on our Facebook page where there's a SnapScan widget, or else on the Quicket booking site as well. So please help us make this event a great success. We need lots of money to continue buying. We have to buy all the wool ourselves. We used to get it all donated, but unfortunately the company that donated it then stopped the production. So we now have to buy the wool, pay our ladies who sew the blankets, and that's what we need your money for.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. May you continue to warm the world, and good luck for next week. Thanks so much.
You. Thank you.
Great. Now, moving on with the rest of our panel. Jill Marcus, I mean, you need no introduction as previous Deputy Minister of Finance, Governor of the Reserve Bank. I mean, you've got an absolute, I mean, a CV from here to Japan. Not that we can travel at the moment, but growing up, you had, I mean, you didn't have the most typical childhood. You had parents who were activists, you had to go into exile. Do you think that that's had a huge impact on your life and the direction that you've chosen for your life?
Well, I don't think going to exile was the definitive question. I think I was very fortunate in being born to the parents that I have had, because they were people of courage, people of principle. They knew very strongly from a heritage. I mean, my grandparents were first-generation immigrants to this country. And it was a lifestyle of being committed. So from a child growing up, you had a very clear awareness of what was right and what was wrong, and that there were lines that you don't cross, and that there were things that you stood for, that you believed in, that you had passion about. And I think that was a commitment that we had as a family, and that I was very fortunate to have known the people I knew from the time I was born.
Fantastic. And that's obviously how you got your political passion and but also passion for business. I mean, so you
I don't agree with you. I have never been in business.
You don't, well, I mean, you were the chairman of a bank.
Yes, but that's not the same thing, you know, and I think it's really an important distinction. And I think given the audience that you have tonight, I think there are a number of questions that one would want to perhaps convey, because it really is important that you do things because that's what you believe in. And you believe in the greater good of putting things back, of making a difference. And you're not doing it because you want to make a difference as an individual. It's because that's what you believe in and what you have the passion for. So it's something that perhaps I've said before, is that I've actually never applied for a job in my life. It's always been people who have looked to you to say, would you be interested in doing the following? And if you can see that it makes a difference, that it is going to add value, that it's going to help people, it's going to make a difference to other people, not to yourself. But when you make a difference to other people, it obviously rewards back to you. Rewards come back to you. So yes, I was a chair of ABSA for a few years. I was also chair of Western Area Gold Mine for a few years. Not that I knew anything about mining. But, and then I was a central bank. I sit I've been always very reluctant to sit on boards. I sit only on one, but it was at this point in time. But it's a question of a choice to do things that was not because it went to business. It was because it was in the interest of the greater good.
So how did you navigate that? So coming from more of a family orientated to political and doing what's right, to getting into an environment which is very much corporate, which does actually rely on people to sort of fit into almost a mold of corporate. And again, I think at that point, women's rights were also only starting to really take flight in South Africa. I mean, when you came back from exile and you joined the ANC and you were appointed as Deputy Minister of Finance, as a white woman and a white Jewish woman, how were you seen in that context?
I think that might not reflect really accurately. I was an ANC person long before I came back. I mean, I've been working for the ANC since 1969, 1970. So when I came back, it was not that I joined the ANC at that time. It was something that I came back. I was one of the first people to be asked by the ANC to come back and help establish the legal structures of the organization, just so that it's sort of a continuum. I worked full-time for the ANC for almost 25 years, before 1994, up until 1994 when we went to Parliament. The question that you ask is a very important one about, how do you move into a different world? Well, in 1999, I had to take a decision about leaving the political world for a different world, because the president at the time, the former President Nelson Mandela at that time, and Deputy President, and then later President Thabo Mbeki, they asked me to go and be the Deputy Governor at the Reserve Bank. And for me, it was a matter of principle that if we went to an institution like the Reserve Bank, not that I knew anything about central banking or banking at that point in time, but you had to stand in the interest of the country, not in the interest of a party. So, and when I agreed to go there, it was a question of then saying, I will shift from being a political activist to being somebody who would take the responsibilities in the national interest, irrespective of party affiliation. Because my own view was that you cannot have a party affiliation and hold an office of that nature.
That's fantastic. And how did you sort of immerse yourself in that role? I mean, I think obviously at the Reserve Bank, there's a lot of expectation and potential history or experience or skill set. How did you, and you did a great job, and people loved you, and to the point that you later were the governor. So how did you really get to that success level, that people had that confidence in you? How did you build up that skill level? Because going from, as you say, you didn't know anything at the time, to really becoming an absolute success, how do you sort of get to that point?
Well, I think I'm very pleased other people think that, because, it's what other people judge you for, not how you see yourself as to whether you're successful or otherwise. But the real question is, and I think these are very important if one has a lesson to learn, is that there is no substitute for hard work. And there is no substitute for ensuring that you work with people who know more than you do. Don't assume that you need to know everything. You need to know enough. And you can't sit there and be complacent and say, oh, that person knows or that person knows. You have to really work hard. So for me, that entire period of a deputy governor for 5 years and governor for 5 years, and in between doing some other things, but in that job, you work 7 days a week and you work 20 hours a day. And you cannot assume anything. You have to be in the detail. You have to know the issues. You have to learn all the time and recognize that you really want to build around you the strongest people in the fields that they have. I mean, the central bank is a very unique institution. There's usually, other than the US, there's usually only one in the country. And therefore, there's no experience of it elsewhere excepting in a central bank. And it is a very unique and very powerful position. And that is a really important question for me, to distinguish between the idea of your personal authority and the authority of office. And it's something that South Africans today also need to be very conscious about, because quite often we confuse the issue and think that the authority of office is a personal authority, when in actual fact you are only occupying that seat in a temporary capacity. And you should recognize that it is a seat of authority that you need to exercise with wisdom and justice and fairness, in particular fairness and knowledge, and that it doesn't belong to you. And the best result is when your personal authority and institutional office authority combine. But quite often people get the respect of the office, but they don't have the respect at the personal level. And we've seen that in many instances prevailing in our country at this point in time, when people have office, but we all ask, well, how did they get there, and should they be having that office?
Yeah, and I think you raise an important part. Yeah,
Sorry?
I think you're actually raising and moving to an important point that a lot of people are actually asking in the chat, in terms of, obviously you joined, I mean, you were completely, and you're an absolute idealist. You came in with all the right reasons and really put your all in. You believe you've got amazing ethics. You believe in the greater good. You do everything for the greater good. And in terms of where we've moved to as a country, in terms of where the government has come to, as you say, some of the individuals have strayed off path. What is the future from your point of view? How do we get back from a South African point of view onto the right track? What can really help us? Where some people are a bit negative at the moment, people are getting a little bit fed up with corruption. We've seen what's happened very recently with the PPE. Where do you see it going, and how do you think we can correct that?
I think there's a very important question here, because South Africans are a little bit like the Russians. We like a czar. We like somebody to oppose. We are a rebellious people. We do not like rules and obey the rules. We will be defiant to our nth degree. And that is a strength. It's not necessarily a weakness, but it can act against us as well. But we look to an authority. But everybody also wants to know that on a sea that is rough, you want to know there's a captain on the ship. And we want to know that the captain knows how to navigate. And part of the challenge that we've got is a societal problem. We have a very deep-rooted societal problem, a very unequal society, a society in which we do not have a value system, that we don't understand conflict of interest because we see no conflict of interest in what we do. So there's a lot of work to be done in our society as a whole. And that requires a very important question, and that I think poses to each of us as an individual. Do we have the integrity, the authenticity, the ability to remain true to who we are, and do we understand who we are? In today's world, where we have so much false news, so much lies, so much manipulation of information, this whole question of social media and how it can manipulate you into certain thinking or into certain directions. I'm sure many of the people listening tonight buy books from Amazon, watch Netflix, but it will always tell you which book they recommend and which film they think you should read based on your previous history. They watch exactly what you're doing. So algorithms are determining a great deal of what the result is. So we need to know ourselves extremely well. We need to know ourselves and say, what lines will I not cross? What things will I not do? With what things will I not allow to be myself to be part of? Because we've got to fix, just as we've been knitting a blanket in the previous, in Sharice's presentation, one square at a time. And I think that's what we have to do as a country, one square at a time. Make a difference in our sphere of influence where we have the influence. And the second question that I think in that regard is that to recognize that you have to have courage. You have to have courage of your conviction. You have to have the courage to stand not only against you've got not only the courage to stand for what's right, you've got to have the courage to stand against what's wrong. And very often the former, you can stand for things without much consequence. When you stand against what is wrong, there's often very big consequence. And to recognize that that is a line that you do not cross and will not be part of. And then we will begin to fix our society. We need to see things from someone else's perspective. If you look at the levels of poverty in our country today, and you look at local government has just had an increase of 6.5% in this day and age, in COVID, in all the circumstances that we're facing, in the inefficiencies and corruption at local government as well. We've got a 6.5% increase. The average councillor gets about 600,000 Rand a year. If you come from poverty and you're living in poverty, you will find everybody will fight for that councillor seat. And if you help somebody get into that councillor seat, the patronage will be there because poverty is extreme. But a lot of the people who are stealing are not poor. So the question around it is a value system. And if we do not build a value system and we deal with it in terms of the kids, if we take COVID as an example, the kids who are able to be in a community, in a physical environment in which internet is available, are at schools that provide internet, that can do distance learning, will have not lost a year. Where I live, we've got 17 schools in a non-profit that I work with on education, and there's no blanket internet. The kids do not learn. They are going to lose the year. Obviously, we're trying to address a number of those things. But I'm just using the example that the inequality and the differentiation grows, does not decrease. And therefore, the sense of fairness, the sense of lacking, and the question of real hunger, physical hunger every single day is facing our communities today. And that's the challenge that all of us face as to what are we going to do about that.
Absolutely, John. I think you bring up a brilliant point, is that it's up to every single individual to try and make a difference in their own sphere. And I mean, we could talk like this for ages. I know that people are literally listening to every single word that you are saying. So thank you so much. I think what you have said is so important. It's so critical. I think everyone at the moment is really looking for that ray of hope. They're looking for that guidance and that beacon in this sort of really the rough seas that we are sailing in at the moment. So thank you so much.
Can I just raise one thing? Because I think there was a person who I just saw it flash on the screen, which said, well, who's listening to me? Well, the question is, you're listening. You're here, you're on the panel and you're listening. It isn't about whether Cyril is listening, because he will have panel after panel after panel. It's a question of whether every one of us is able to say, in my sphere of influence, am I making a difference? Is there somebody who is going to benefit from me making a step, knitting a square, doing something that is practical, ensuring that the person next to me is actually able to go to bed that night with food rather than without food. So yes, people don't listen sufficiently until it's too late in many instances. But I think the question for me is the challenge for us to say, we should not be tolerating this. There's local government elections coming up. Make sure that you know who you're voting for and what we expect from them. We've got to fix it one square at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Again, such wise words. I mean, the comments are rolling in again that you are so wise. You're speaking for all of us. So thank you so much. Absolutely wise words. And I think you're right. Absolutely incumbent on every single individual to take their own responsibility for what it is. So thank you so, so much. All right. So sure, guys. So that's the conversations are definitely heating up. I think we are getting so many insights. It's incredible. But we need to take a word from one of our sponsors, Europcar. So Dan, please run the ad for Europcar.
At Europcar, we believe that a little further goes a long way. Whether it's greeting you with a warm cup of coffee after a long flight or brightening your day with a pack of our signature mints, we pride ourselves in going that extra mile to make our customers feel just a bit more special. Our state-of-the-art fleet makes it easy to book everything from chauffeur drives and airport transfers to van and car rentals. It's no surprise then that through our extensive footprint and commitment to exceptional customer service, we've been awarded the title of Africa's leading car hire company at the World Travel Awards for many years in a row. So, whether you're renting a runaround or executive vehicle for your next business trip, a 4x4 to just get away from it all, or a versatile SUV for the holidays, you can trust our range of quality vehicles. Europcar, moving your way.
So I have to say that it is absolutely no coincidence whatsoever that we were running a Europcar ad, because we have with us none other than Dawn Nathan-Jones, the previous CEO of Europcar. How are you, Dawn?
I'm good, thanks, Dina, and it really warms my heart to see that Europcar video. As you know, I've been out of the business for the last 4 years, and it really is, it's beautiful to see the people. And those are all real people. Yeah. So thank you for running the ad so appropriately.
We did sort of think about that before, so we're so glad, because obviously you were one of the founders of Imperial, which became Europcar. I mean, you were literally instrumental with your own hands and feet getting it done, and you've also gone on to achieve so much as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, and I mean, to say that we're proud of you is an understatement. You're just fantastic. But I think you would need to share with people your story on how you actually started Imperial Car, because it's just a fascinating story. So please tell us about it.
Thank you, Dina. I'm still a little overwhelmed sharing this platform with so many remarkable women. But so my story started with very humble beginnings. I wasn't a great student. I was no straight A student. In fact, I didn't enjoy school at all. I actually resisted authority and control, and I was quite rebellious. And I think my parents were a little worried about me, that I couldn't make up my mind what I was going to do. I did a lot of different things. I bumbled from all sorts of different things until the age of 21, where I met Carol Scott, accidental meeting with Carol. And it was remarkable. She gave me this incredible opportunity to start a business in Durban. I was 21 years old, and we started the business from a Croxley, remember what a Croxley notepad is, where we had handwritten notes. So we were these enthusiastic amateurs given this unbelievable opportunity. So when most 21-year-olds were given the key to the front door, I was given a key to 6 cars and told, like, go and find customers, let's start this business. And everyone thought we were mad. And I remember at the time I had a job, and I went to my then boss and I said to him, listen, I'm leaving. I was earning 250 Rand a month. Was in 1980. I was 10 years old, by the way. And I was earning 250 Rand a month. And I said, I've been offered this incredible opportunity. And he said 2 things for me. He said, he said to me, firstly, you don't really know much about the business. Like, what do you know about the business? Like, it's not an easy business. That's incredibly competitive. And then he said also, as a female, you're going to go and join another female, and what do females know about the transport and motor industry? Well, that was my opening. That I left that same day, and strangely enough, 10 years later, guess what arrived on my desk? His CV for a job, which was quite amazing. So that's how I started, given the opportunity. And then in 1984, I think I moved to Johannesburg, and that's really where my career blossomed. And just meeting the most remarkable people. We were very hands-on. Literally, we would go out and wash cars and walk the talk, and really, like, we just had this incredible passion for this business. And the more people said we couldn't do it, and we were coming into an industry that was oversaturated, there were 3 international brands, there was no future, this was not a growing market, the more determined we became. And in fact, I must tell you a story that not many people know about, but living in Durban, I was 22 years old, our competitors gave us such a hard time, and little did they know that the harder time they gave us, the more resilient and the more we would fight back. So, like, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on, keep giving us a hard time. And I was often escorted off the premises because we operated illegally, because we didn't have an official concessionaire. The tenders were only coming out in 3 years' time. And I remember being removed by the airport management, and the one day, there was a tap on my shoulder, and it was the Umlazi police. And I was taken to the Umlazi police station and arrested for illegal trading. So, and I promise you, it was like, yes, now we're going to get them back. So, yeah, I think it was all very naive. I mean, I met incredible people, and I would just sort of phone up and say to Raymond Ackerman's secretary, can I come and meet Raymond? Harry Oppenheimer. I met the most incredible people. I was fearless. I'm still pretty fearless. So really, this great opportunity was given to me, and I was at the helm and the driving seat for over 3 decades. And then at the end of 2015, I decided it was time to hang up my corporate coat. And, I always said, when I felt that maybe I wasn't enjoying, or I still loved and still enjoyed right until the last day, but I think the corporate world, and particularly in a listed company, you spend your life on compliance and issues, you spend your life in board meeting. And I kept asking myself, I'm an entrepreneur, how much value am I adding? So for a number of reasons, I thought that I would take a step back, hand the baton over, and move on and start a new life for myself. So that's my story.
Sure. I mean, that is a serious story. I mean, if people needed inspiration to know that you could literally go from, at that point, literally 0 to hero, in under 60 seconds. Like you really proved that you could do it. And again, the more adversity you had, the more you challenged, the more you went, the more determined you were to succeed. And I mean, we saw that throughout the whole of your corporate career and now as an entrepreneur, but you also have always fought for women's rights. So again, you started actually the Maiden Award for the Europcar Women in Leadership in Business for the Jewish Achiever Awards. And you also have been fighting the fight for women, and you've done a lot to help women achieve their potential. Tell us about that.
So yes, and I still do, and I think I left the corporate world to live and to give back. So I've always believed that in life, my life in particular, has been divided into three parts: the learning, and not for me so much the academic learning, although I was able to study much later on. The learning just from wisdom from other people, and then earning, but not earning financially, earning respect, earning your stripes, earning your position, earning your reputation. And then, the last one is returning to sugar, giving back. And this has been the most incredible chapter in my life, giving back. And I work in one of my companies called Over the Rainbow. We work with a lot of female startups or females wanting to start up their own business. And we run a boot camp for them. In fact, we ran one today with Jet in Cape Town. And it was really amazing. And to see how many people, which is quite sad, that have lost their jobs and need to start up their own business. So I think now more than ever before, we need females in the role of entrepreneurship to find solutions to problems. So that's what we're doing. And in lockdown, I must just quickly tell you a story. In lockdown, after making sandwiches and getting food parcels out to communities, I knew it just wasn't enough. So my partner and I, it was, I think, day 25 of lockdown. We were chatting to each other all day, and we said, what are people doing? And we started reflecting on some of the stories that we heard, and we decided to write a book. So our book has been launched in Women's Month, the 18th of August, called Hope Stories. And I'm incredibly proud that some of the people on the chat tonight are part of our book. Glyn from Angel Network. I mean, her story is remarkable. Our very own Stan Stillerman. We've got some incredible stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's what I believe in, that you don't need to be a rocket scientist. You just need to be an ordinary person, and you can achieve so much if you have the passion, the resilience, the desire, and the will, and the sheer grit and determination, which is really what's been about for me.
Phenomenal. And also, I mean, with all of this, you've also raised a beautiful son who also is just happy, loves life, is so just grounded and fantastic. How did having a son and becoming a mom influence you and your career and your choices that you made?
So look, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy at first, having entrenched myself in my career for so long. But I always wanted a family, and my son came into my life, and I realized for the first time that, I always felt that as a woman and, being in a career and sitting most times the only woman around a boardroom table of men, that I almost had to hide my personal life. I was almost ashamed to actually open up and show my vulnerabilities. And I realized that actually being vulnerable is like the most courageous thing that you can do. So my son actually changed me. He really taught me about being a mom and balancing things. And I remember I was on a plane with somebody, I was going to a board meeting in Paris. I was sitting on a plane with a guy who I'd never met before in the financial world, quite a senior person. And we were chatting, realized our sons were both soccer fans, same age, came from totally different communities. And he said to me, what's your son's name? And I said, Daniel Nathan. He said, Daniel Nathan, playing for Balfour Park. I said, yes. He says, he's amazing. Did you see the hat trick that he scored like 3 weeks ago? And did you see him do a cycle, whatever, I don't know, whatever. And he was telling me about my son, and I sat on the airplane, the tears rolling down my eyes. Here was a complete stranger telling me about my son. And I think that's when the reality kicked in. Like, and I think you can have a balance. I don't think there is such a thing as a balance. I really think it's a myth. And I think that anyone that professes to be able to balance relationships, their kids, their families, their friends, their work, there is no perfect solution, but you make choices. And I think life is about choices. I chose to give time back to my son and to give back to the community, and particularly the youth, who I believe are our future, and to young women.
Well, I think, Dawn, that you have managed to balance. You've managed to have it all. You've got your family, you've got your career, you're giving back. So you have just been so inspirational. And I think so many people in the comments also that are coming in here. So, and we're so looking forward to that book, because the stories in there are phenomenal and are so inspiring. So thank you so much for your time. And again, we'll see you back in the Q&A. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. And while we are on the car note, we'd like to thank one of our next sponsors, which is Kia Motors. Dan, please run that video.
There's a spacious Kia Sportage for every family.
Awesome. Thank you so much to Kia. And before we get to our next panelist, which is Professor Valerie Mizrahi, we'd like to just run a quick poll. So Dan, please put up the quick poll that we're going to do. And this question I love, because I myself do enjoy some chivalry. So the question is chivalry dead? The first answer, absolutely, men and women should always be treated equally. No, a lady should always be treated like a lady. And number 3, never heard of it. All right, so we are running the poll, and yeah, people respond very quickly. It's quite impressive, I must tell you. And with that, I'm going to actually bring up Val to get her video started and to unmute her. We're going to give the poll another 3 seconds, and then we're going to end the polling. And although people are still responding, so I'll give you 5 more seconds because I'm quite interested to see what is actually happening over here. Val, what do you think in terms of is chivalry dead? What is your professional opinion?
Can I claim ignorance on that one? I've already voted. I voted anonymously.
Okay. All right. So we are going to share the results. So 65% of people, which I think is well done, say no, a lady should always be treated like a lady. And 34% say absolutely, men and women should always be treated equally, so no chivalry there. And 1%, unfortunately, have never heard of it. But I think that is quite an interesting poll. So thank you, everyone, for sharing and for getting involved in our poll. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Valerie, as our final speaker and panelist this evening. I mean, your CV, I can't even begin to sort of read your CV. I mean, you've won, you are the professional director of the Institute of Infectious Disease and Molecular Medicine at UCT, an internationally recognized leader in the field of tuberculosis. You're an advisor to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Harvard School of Public Health. You've received awards like the L'Oreal UNESCO Award for Women in Science, Order of Mapungu. I always get this wrong. Makumbugwe. Please pronounce that for me.
Mapungubwe.
Yeah, that's what I was saying exactly. Christoph Merieux Prize and the Harry Oppenheimer Fellowship Award, and of course a Jewish Achieve Award winner. So, I mean, that is an absolute sort of huge list of accolades. And you obviously have been studying and researching for absolute years. And as a woman researcher, I think what we want to find out from you is have you really encountered any issues in your career as a woman, and how have you managed to rise to the top?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for the invitation. It's been such a fantastic hour listening to these incredible people. So I'm not always so comfortable talking about myself, and I'd love to tell you more about what I actually do. But in terms of making it and progression as a woman in science, I've seen enormous changes over the time from when I first went to UCT as a starry-eyed student who was absolutely in love with chemistry, and walked into a class. I'd come from an all-girls school, walked into a class where there were very, very few girls, and then progressed my way through, and in the junior stages of my career was often the only woman or one of very few women in my field. And today I actually sit and run an institute which is sitting in a faculty in a university that is feminized. And I'm incredibly proud to work at a university where the chancellor, the vice chancellor, the 3 deputy vice chancellors, the chair of council are all women. 3 of whom are African women. And so the changes have been absolutely extraordinary over the course of my career, whether it was by default or by design, by intent. I have always had run a research group that has been dominated by women. I had children, so I was a working mother, and I set a kind of tone in the way that I ran my lab that sent me home reasonably early in the afternoon, and I wasn't interested in going into any meetings late in the afternoon. And I set the tone, and many women came after me. And as I said, today I run an institute where I think what I still see is moving to the highest level. Which in the world of scientific research comes with massive demands, often related to travel, very high pressure. You know, we are as good as our last publication. So it's a high intensity field, incredibly exciting. Nothing is the same any 2 days at work. The field moves dramatically. I mean, I could talk to you about what it's been like as a scientist working in the field of COVID research, but I have seen major changes. I think the challenge we've got in this country in particular now is to get African women in particular, to choose science as a career and to stay in science as a career. So I've in fact trained many African women PhD graduates, and the opportunities for well-educated, numerate, literate African women are enormous outside of the academy. We would love to see people staying within the universities, but so things have changed, and I'm just really glad that I chose this as a career choice. And if any of you out there have got young daughters who love science, you know, to be paid to think is a privilege as far as I'm concerned.
Listen, I mean, I think what you do is a very much a particular skill, and as you say, years of study, and I think chemistry also very particular, and you're saying a lot of hours of dedication. How did you manage that balance? I mean, you're a mom and also having to be away for work or spend long hours at work. How did you balance being a mom?
Yeah, I don't even know what it means to think around it. I manage. You do the best that you can, and you learn just to compromise. And I think for me the hardest lesson, because I'm a perfectionist and I've heard that word used a couple of times tonight, the hardest lesson was to learn that I was not actually going to be doing anything perfectly anymore. So there was a time before I had my kids where it was okay to be able to focus and spend long hours and work weekends and work nights and, you know, write the papers and get the grants and hit that kind of asymptote towards what was the best piece of work I could produce. But kids come into your life and everything just gets turned upside down and compromises get made, and I think one just has to learn somehow how to live with that. And of course there's big prices to pay, often a personal price, because there turns out to have not much time to do things for oneself. But you know, if I think about the choices that I made, I would never have wanted to be any different. And I think actually my kids and becoming a mom brought a measure of humanity into my life and made me see things very differently. And I feel that having gone through motherhood and learning what it means to have children has sensitized me to some of the very difficult things that I see on a daily basis in the work that I do. I mean, I run an institute that is built on trying to come with solutions for the biggest health problems that face humanity, and that is HIV, TB, and now COVID. And you know, we get confronted, and I was really moved by what Jill was talking about in terms of us understanding inequality and poverty being at the root of so much of what we're struggling with today. And I certainly feel that experience of learning how to muddle through and not doing things perfectly all the time, and learning how to really see and understand and feel what other people were feeling, made me a better person, and I'd like to think maybe a better scientist, actually.
Absolutely. And you were also talking now along of what you have been seeing in terms of the COVID research. I think you mentioned some very interesting things to me, that what's coming out from a gender insights point of view and from a South African point of view. Do you want to share some of that with us?
Yeah, so something that is a really a hot topic in the world of science, because let me contextualize science in the era of COVID. The solution to COVID as an infectious disease will come from vaccines and drugs and diagnostics. So science has actually been elevated into some kind of position of importance and authority that many of us believe it deserved before COVID, but it's very much in the spotlight today. The consequences, however, of the COVID pandemic is that many of us are having to work at home, and the biggest shock that I get is that it's reminded me of my age, that actually I'm deemed high risk by virtue of my age and I'm working at home. But my daughters are adults, they're grown women. What we've discovered in the world of scientific research is that there is a significant gender disparity now in terms of the challenges that women scientists are facing if they have kids at home during the COVID pandemic. So we have women disproportionately represented amongst contract scientific researchers as opposed to those who have so-called permanent positions. We have women underrepresented in the lower levels, and we have women ultimately in this country still bearing the lion's share of the raising of the children and taking care of domestic responsibilities. I was very interested to see that internationally this has become a really hot topic. So I think we're seeing a whole a kind of intersection of many social issues that COVID is bringing into sharp relief. Black Lives Matter, intersection with gender-related issues. But we did a survey in our institute, and we're very, very, I suppose, not really surprised, but it was quite stark to see that the impact that COVID and the consequences of not being able to go into laboratories and work, the consequences that it's having on women seem to be quite significantly greater than on men. We're also finding, interestingly, when we ask people what are they spending their time doing, partitioning their time doing their own research, serving the institution, looking after their own students and doing homework, basically domestic responsibilities, we find that women disproportionately are contributing to the institution, sitting on committees, sitting on review panels, trying to help to get remote learning systems up and running, support groups, gender-based violence groups. And so, you know, I look around as a woman today and feel that I've just learned so much in the last 6 months as a scientist, as a woman, and as just a member of a society where so many problems have been brought into such sharp relief that we knew about, but are in our face right now. So it's for me been an absolutely dramatic time. And I feel a great sense of responsibility as a director of a large institute with many of these women who I know are struggling to figure out and to try to move into problem solving mode now. Not only are we trying to do diagnostics and vaccine work in our institute, but problem solving in terms of addressing some of these fundamental problems which women often don't feel comfortable speaking about, because I think Dawn mentioned this issue of vulnerability. For me, the courage that is associated with being vulnerable is something that I'm seeing coming out in women, but it's taking courage to show vulnerability for myself as well.
Yeah, listen, I think what you've mentioned is like those insights, I think would not have potentially come out if we had it not been for COVID. So it actually is very interesting. And to see that role of women evolving, and again, for women to be vulnerable, but also to be in positions of power or achievement, there is always that antithesis, but it is also how you manage that and how people sort of accept that. And I think it has become a lot more acceptable in the current sort of conditions that we are in at the moment.
Dina, if I could say that what saddens me as a person who has spent 30 years working on trying to raise the profile of tuberculosis through science, okay, is that it saddens me that we need COVID to make people see these things. You know, TB is important for people listening in today. You know, in South Africa, every single day, 170 people die of tuberculosis. We don't have meters running that come into your News 24 news feed telling you how many people died of TB each and every day. It's a disease that has affected the poor. And because COVID brought to its knees the major economic powerhouses of the North, we start thinking about these things. You know, sometimes one has to really ask, you know, are we thinking clearly? And if we learn anything by this experience, it makes us understand that all lives have equal value. There's no differentiation between a poor African dying of TB and a rich American dying of COVID. These are infectious diseases which we need to tackle. But, you know, I feel in some ways really quite alarmed at the abject lack of attention that we in this country and many other countries have paid to diseases, malaria, TB, HIV, that just kill, you know, tens of millions of people. And as I said, COVID has just come in. I'm part of a group of scientists who wrote a piece in the Daily Maverick that I'm very proud of. We published it early in May. It was a very difficult time for me personally because I had just lost my father and had been unable to attend his funeral because of COVID. But we sat down and we talked about what COVID meant for health systems in general in South Africa, and came out and very early on spoke about the fact that we cannot single out this disease. As serious as it is, we've got to find some way of living with it and integrating it into other systems. So, you know, if I'm talking along these lines, it's just that I would say these last 6 months have given pause to all of us. And the fact that Jewish Report are able to put hundreds of people together to listen and to be inspired, I think speaks to the fact that we're all being moved in very fundamental ways. And it's just been quite a dramatic time.
But thank you to you, Valerie. I know the work that you do is literally groundbreaking, especially in the area of TB. So it is people like you who do give us hope and who do bring those issues to light. So thank you so much. You've been outstanding. I know we're going to go into a general Q&A now, and we're going to get all of our panelists back. Just to say thank you to our last sponsor this evening, which is Mayofeni. I'd like to just play their ad, and then we're going to bring back all the panelists.
After more than a decade of coaching young athletes and young adults in life skills and wellness, Daniel Ackerman and Thabo Mutsumi founded Mofenyi Advisory. Their mission is to help individuals and teams to not only overcome challenges, but to realize a better version of themselves by working with you to create a structure that is dedicated to you and your lifestyle. They aim to empower you to transform your aspirations into achievable goals through a holistic approach to all aspects of mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and interpersonal wellness. Their vision is to change our future by impacting young lives to understand their value, their purpose, and ultimately how to apply themselves effectively as leaders within their communities.
Wow, and thank you so much. And thank you to all of our sponsors that have joined us this evening and who continue to sponsor us for these wonderful webinars and make it all possible. As you know, the Jewish Report is actually a functioning business, so any support we do get is well appreciated. But we now would like to bring back all of our panelists. And sure, I mean, there have been so many questions that have come in. I think all of you have raised so many issues in terms of your roles, in terms of where women leadership is moving, in terms of the determination, the passion that has existed. And I just want to know, are there any closing comments that any of you would like to make from what you have heard this evening?
I'm happy to. I mean, I think we're running late, and I'm sure everybody wants to go to bed.
A bit, so we're going to take a few comments, and then just to see if you have any closing comments, and then we will absolutely go to bed.
Well, I think my closing comment is that, honestly, just to help repair the world, leave this world a better place than it is currently. I mean, it's really not difficult because it's a complete mess. But I think if each and every one of us makes some small commitment to improve the world, we will be doing a wonderful job.
Absolutely. I think well said. And I think every single one of you shows that the difference that one person can make. And then Jill, as you so alluded to, every single person, it starts with you. It starts with your change and your behavior. And I think we should all absolutely take that to heart this evening.
Dina, may I ask your panelists a question?
Absolutely.
I think we've seen that the world leaders who are female have really, during the COVID period, led the pack. Whether it's in Iceland or whether it's in Germany or New Zealand, there's an entire group of women leaders of countries who have put politics aside and who've led the way. So let us turn to all of our women on the panel to say, let us say you had the ear of the president, who in South Africa at this very moment is a man, and you could actually whisper one thing in their ear about what they should do differently today that would help improve South Africa. What would you tell the president?
We needed to prep for that. Anyone want to go?
Lift the bans, lift the restrictions.
Yeah, as Wendy said.
To add on to Sharon's point is just to get the to kickstart the economy. I think we just cannot, the amount of jobs that have been lost. And I know it sounds like a pipe dream in this new world, but I think if every leader, male or female, and every business just tries to preserve as many jobs as we can. I know it's very difficult. But for the thousands of people and for the so many messages I get every day, please help me, I've been retrenched. My message to the president was, let's educate the youth. Let's make sure that we preserve jobs at all cost and kickstart the economy.
Yeah, I think it's time to stop talking and actually acting. I think that you should put some people in jail, actually do something courageous.
I agree. Grow a pair of balls.
Yeah. Thanks.
Courage.
I love how you say like it is.
That's the way it is. Grow a pair of balls and do what is right. He knows what's right.
Courage.
Well, the question with that is that I'm not quite sure that they do, because I think there's a different sense of right and wrong. If you listen to, one thing is Cyril, the president, but if you looked at it in terms of the comments after this recent whole spate of ministers who are involved in corruption, and to me, the astonishing question, it's not a word in Cyril's ear, because I don't think it is about a word in Cyril's ear. It is about a loud voice that the country speaks unanimously about, to say it is enough. You cannot have the hawks going after a private matter, whether it is the Deputy Minister of Finance or whether it's the former Minister Gigaba, because his wife is having a dispute. The hawks can go there and deal with that, and she's in jail because she scratched the 3 million rand car. But people stealing billions, nothing happens. So it's not simply a question of the word in Cyril's ear, because the challenge that we have is this notion of a collective in which no one has responsibility. And until we actually have a reality that says the buck stops, where does that buck stop? And I happen to agree with Wendy, because I think there are certain parts of the anatomy that seem to be missing. Right. So part of the challenge that you've got is that It's not a word in Cyril's ear. It has to be a shout from the society to say enough is enough and we are not going to take this anymore. And then when we know what is happening, make sure that we have the ability to say, expose it. Absolutely expose it. Do not be part of it. And part of what we do, unfortunately, most of us, is to look at and say, what happens to me in that circumstance? I mind my own business. It's their business. And we deal with it as a party political issue when it's a societal issue. This is much greater than, if it was simply a party, there'd be alternatives. The reality is we have no alternatives in this country in real terms, unless we get an organized civil society that has strong voice and power to say enough is enough and we're not going to do this anymore. And that's what we have to do. So it isn't a whisper. It's got to be a very loud shout in unanimity about the country. Absolutely. And put the people first, as you keep, we keep saying it, but we don't do it. We don't mean a word we say. This is the problem. The real problem is, and I'm sorry to hog it, but the real problem is that hope and confidence and trust is lost. And those are very difficult things to rebuild. So we have to do it, as I said, one square at a time,
Absolutely. And I think that the power of this panel and the power of all of these women, especially in Women's Month, which should be every single month, and in my mind is every single month, I think that all of you have shown that one square at a time definitely makes an entire blanket, and we should all be responsible. And I thank you all. You have been unbelievable panelists. You have shared your stories, your insights, your wisdom, your knowledge, and the comments, I think in the comment section, have just reiterated that. So thank you all for your time. Wendy, we do know it's late, so we won't keep you longer. And thank you just all so much. You were all fantastic, and we absolutely appreciate every single thing that you said tonight. Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, Dina, we'd love to know what people who watch thought. So the chat is open. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to know, in fact, if this was a useful, inspiring panel. I must say, I've walked away completely inspired by the remarkable voices we've heard, not just the remarkable people. And I keep on getting messages, and the messages say, like, can we have Wendy Applebaum on every week? That's one of the messages, and the messages that say Jill for president, and people who've said, Val, you're my greatest mentor, and people like Sharon and Dion, who in the business world are trailblazers in the sort of stuff that they're doing. It has just been the most remarkable, inspiring evening. And I think one of the things that we attempt to do at the Jewish Report and through the Jewish Achieve Awards is to create icons for our community. And the sad thing is we often look around at our community and we say there are just not enough women stepping up. They're doing well in community, they're doing well in social welfare, they're sometimes doing well in academia, but they're just not enough in business, in the sciences, in building mass construction projects. We need to see women everywhere in our society. And we as a community have to actually start addressing these issues and make sure that, because all of us go through the Jewish day school systems, and the top, brightest, best people at school are always the women, and you go to university and it's always women who are top of the class. And within our own community, we somehow lose them along the journey. And if we're going to be strong as a community in South Africa, we cannot afford to have half our population just disappear from leadership roles in every sphere of everything that we do. So tonight has been just so inspiring for me to listen to all of you. Thank you so much to everyone who's watched. Please keep on putting all your comments in. And as we play out, just a reminder that on Saturday night, 8 p.m., we are going to be telling the remarkable story of Sylvia Raphael, the Mossad spy from Graaf Reinet, who became a spy, who became a world-famous photographer, who became an assassin. And her story is probably the most riveting spy story you've ever seen. You can go by registering on bit.ly/SAJR 43, and that will allow you to register for Saturday night's event. And we're going to play out actually with our trailer for that event, but please feel free. We'll leave the chat open for another few minutes after the trailer. So give us your feedback. Let us know what you thought. And we'll, of course, see you all on Saturday night.
She had to pull this off and not lose her life. She had to fool the best, and she did.
בשום סרט ריגול שראיתם לא מגיע לרמה הזאת של המבצעים שסילביה נטלה בהם חלק.
Dan Stillerman, a huge thank you to you. Where are you? Turn on your camera. Let's say a big thank you for controlling all the controls tonight.
My pleasure. Actually, I've had my gin and tonic. I drank a toast to all these amazing women and all the amazing women out there. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I echo your words, Howie. Hugely inspiring. So yeah, thanks for a great evening, Dina. Well done for moderating. Yeah, so many messages of support and inspiration coming through in the chat. So really wonderful to see.
But Dan, I must say, the one thing that I love so much tonight is no one pussyfooted around issues. People were straight to the point. They said what was on their mind, and that's so refreshing, often just to hear people talk like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think inspired by Wendy. Tell it like it is, whether people like it or not.
Well, you know, those of us who know Sharon know she doesn't mince her words. Dion never minces her words either. These are the most remarkable, inspiring people that we have in our community. It's been such a pleasure to spend the evening with them. So if you want to put your last comments in the chat, please do so. We're going to turn off in about 1 minute. A huge thank you for Dan. Dan, people don't realize how stressful it is to be sitting behind the scenes, making sure all the videos play, the sound goes up, that people can't find their links. It's not an easy job that you do.
Yeah, thanks, Howie. Unfortunately, it seems like the Mantis sound on their video wasn't so good tonight, so we'll have to play that again on Saturday night, because Mantis have been a very, very loyal sponsor. I think I've played their video probably 20 times over the last 4 months, so sorry about that. But yeah, otherwise pulling the strings and doing my thing here.
So we'll definitely play it on Saturday night, but why don't, in fact, we leave by playing the Mantis video again?
Perfect.
Let's do that. Thank you all again. Have a great evening.
I see comments are still coming in, and I see the word inspired and inspiring seems to be used so often by people when they put the comments in tonight. So absolutely, absolutely amazing. So to everyone, Dan, you've had your gin and tonic. I've had my gin and tonic. I feel like Dina is deserving of maybe she too should go and have a gin and tonic now as well.
I think I might need two.
Good night, everyone. We'll see you again on Saturday. Good night, Dan. Good night, Dina. Good night to all our panelists.
Cheers, cheers. Have a great night.
Bye.